If you have the chance, you should get your hands on an original Game Boy. They don't go for much, and the bulky gray brick design is iconic at this point. It's a testament to the limitations we were willing to put up with for the convenience of portability. While the software led to some pretty inventive aesthetics, the hardware was a bit harder for game companies to adapt to. The small LCD screen has no backlight and a low frame rate, which causes a motion blurring effect. This makes on-screen action a complicated and hard-to-see experience, and these factors had direct effects on game development. Take a look at the evolution of the Mario Land series and it becomes clear. In Mario Land 1, Mario is small and moves quickly, making him prone to off-screen hazards and projectiles, forcing you to inch across the screen to make progress. In Mario Land 2, they zoom in to make Mario easier to see, but the complications are still there. By Mario Land 3, you play as the even larger Wario, and gameplay is completely shifted to exploration instead of action. Mario Land was built to showcase the console's capabilities, but it ended up showcasing its limitations more. There's a reason Nintendo of America went with Tetris as the bundled launch title. Puzzle games were king on the console, and action games had a lot of catching up to do, which is all the more impressive with how complete a game Gargoyle's Quest is. Gargoyle's Quest was released a year into the Game Boy's lifespan. It's the first in a trilogy of games starring Firebrand, a one-off enemy in the Ghouls and Ghosts franchise. A continuation of the Ghouls and Ghosts games without any major overhauls to the gameplay would have been fraught with a lot of the issues that plagued Mario Land, so it was a wise decision to take the gameplay into another direction and recontextualize that change with Firebrand. Firebrand can run and jump, but also hover for a brief period, buffer his descent, and grapple on walls. To help with the visibility, interactable objects were given an outline, and to help with the blurring, Firebrand is given a projectile and a decrease to his overall speed. Acceleration and speed are essential components to the visceral enjoyment of a platformer where action is the main focus. Mario Land 1's stop and start gameplay was a detriment to the overall game feel, and that led to the eventual shift in objective by Mario Land 3 to exploration and collection. Gargoyle's Quest is not a game about exploration and collection, but it still maintains the visceral experience of acceleration, not through the action of gaining speed, but through Firebrand's change in direction. Gargoyle's Quest's biggest difference, brought on by the hardware limitations to maintain the sense of action, is its focus on verticality. Gargoyle's Quest has less of a focus on moving from left to right, and a more balanced focus on moving in all four directions. This key difference is translated through the level design. The more traditionally horizontal levels in Gargoyle's Quest have a lot of direction changes, with scalable obstacles to ascend and pits to descend into. Some levels are entirely dedicated to climbing or descending. As you progress through the game, you find yourself having to change direction a lot more than a traditional platformer. Firebrand's wing strength and jump height will also increase throughout the game, and that causes the levels to progress and evolve as well. While horizontal-based platformers are all about speed, the level design in vertical-based platformers is more focused on control. This translates to the bosses as well. While horizontal-based bosses are about pattern recognition, vertical-based bosses are about adaptability. With bosses in Mega Man games, you have to almost reverse engineer the AI's patterns through repeated attempts. Only after you've found their rhythm can you defeat them. It's a common video game convention, the repetition when fighting a boss. Without any prior research, bosses will have a brand new set of moves that punish much harder than normal enemies' attacks. Can you recall a boss that you could beat on the first attempt in a game? Maybe a few times through brute force, but I assume most of the time the answer is no. We beat bosses in video games almost unfairly, with the prior knowledge of repetitive attempts afforded to us within the medium. But with Gargoyle's Quest, you don't need to go into any of the boss fights with a plan. In Gargoyle's Quest, the bosses are tested purely on the player's control of Firebrand. Each boss is a large, lumbering monster set in a tight obstacle course. The settings give Firebrand and the bosses a unique environment to maneuver around. While the bosses do have unique movesets, the focus on the encounter is on avoidance and agility, and not about memorizing patterns. I have beaten all of the bosses more times than I can count, but I've never gotten into the fights with any sort of plan. The boss's movements are random and unpredictable, and it creates a dynamic encounter of action and reaction. This makes every encounter unique, and gives the player an outlet to express through the gameplay. With modern hardware, the first two Mario Land games have garnered a bit of a cult resurgence. As much as it comes off that I'm disparaging those games, they are good games. They just needed whatever was lost in the hardware limitations returned. But Gargoyle's Quest never lost anything from those limitations, and may have even gained something. The slower movement gives you more time to take in the environments and world, the focus on the control connects you more with Firebrand, and the freeform action-reaction boss fights all create a very immersive and expressive experience for a game of its simplicity. A lot of that comes from adapting the conventions of the 2D platformer genre to the limitations of the hardware at the time. Rare do I find a modern game that lets me express myself through the gameplay in the ways I feel Gargoyle's Quest lets me. As technology advances and old limitations are replaced with new limitations, it's impossible to know what innovations we could have missed out on the road not traveled. Hopefully here, however, this gargoyle can scare off some of those demons.